mitzvah, mitzvah through ASMR. Good evening, Shabbat Shalom, Happy Hanukkah to those who celebrate. For this video, I'm going to be making potato latkes, also known as potato pancakes. And so here is what I will be using to make this today. I have a cutting board, a box grater, a large bowl, a colander, and I also have a smaller bowl for that colander. And I have a 5-pound bag of potatoes. So normally when I make latkes or potato pancakes, I might only make them with a couple of potatoes, but I'm going to be having a Hanukkah party. This is the second year I'm throwing a big Hanukkah party. I invite both Jewish and non-Jewish friends. It's a pretty secular party, but I always want to make it a tradition to serve homemade latkes and homemade challah. And so I'm going to be making the latkes ahead of time, and I am going to be freezing them, and then on the day of the party I will put them in the oven. I've never frozen pre-made latkes before, but another channel I watch, it's actually called My Jewish Mommy Life. It's a Jewish YouTuber who blogs her life. She recently put out a video where she made latkes and she showed how to freeze them ahead of time. I'm not going to be showing you how to freeze them ahead of time. This is really meant to be an ASMR video where there will be some sounds of the cooking and mostly me softly speaking over it and showing you how I make latkes. But I'll try to find a way to link her video as well so that you can see how she makes them and you can see how to freeze them so that you can eat them at another time. And so one russet potato will make about 3 to 4 latkes depending on the size of the potato and how big you make the latkes. Last year I probably made about 30 latkes, so that was probably about 10 potatoes. This year I ended up with about 32 latkes. I lost count of how many potatoes I used, but it was probably around 10 again. And so here I am just shredding the potato with the box grater. Some people will shred the potatoes and some will put them in a food processor so it's more like a mashed potato consistency. I haven't tried that yet. Maybe one day I will, but so far I just like to grate them. I like the texture. I like the way that they fry and you can get some crunchy bits, and I'll show you that part later on. So this is just me grating the potato. Grating about 10 or more potatoes is definitely an arm workout, but it's a labor of love. And as you can see, I'm wearing I believe a Kevlar glove. That's just to prevent my hand from getting scraped as I, work my way down to the nub of the potato. It can be getting pretty close to my hand, and so I find this glove to be very helpful. And so we're just about done with the first potato. Sometimes I can't get the whole potato and I just leave a small amount left over. And that's probably what will happen here. And so there it is, the first shredded potato. Look how nice it looks. I'm going to be placing that into the colander. And so potatoes actually have a lot of water in them, and in order for a crispy latke to be made, it's good to try to drain out the water. So I'm placing them in the colander as I shred the other potatoes, and then I'll also use a paper towel and squeeze the potatoes in it to try to get out extra water. I'm not too crazy about this. There's always going to be some water. I don't spend too much time on it, but it is helpful to try to get some of the water out. And so I like to just take a damp paper towel and wipe the potato to try to clean it. I don't skin the potatoes. I think it's just an extra step that's unnecessary. I actually really like the consistency and taste of potato skins anyways. I think it's nice to have. So you are certainly welcome to skin your own potatoes if you like. And let's just get another close-up of the grating. And this was definitely an arm workout for me, as I mentioned before. Now, I didn't grow up celebrating Hanukkah, but my mother did make latkes every now and then. She called them potato pancakes, and they were always so delicious. I kind of always forgot they existed until the next time my mom would make them. And then when she'd say she'd be making them, it was really exciting. It was like, oh yeah, potato pancakes. That's so great that she's making them again. But I didn't really realize that they're a food commonly associated with Hanukkah. I make them every now and then when I feel like it, but I certainly make them around Hanukkah, especially for the Hanukkah party. And if you celebrate Hanukkah, let me know if you like to make latkes, and do you shred them like I do, or do you put them in a food processor and make more like mashed potato consistency? I'm curious to know. And if you don't celebrate Hanukkah, potato latkes are delicious. You can eat them anytime, and I hope that this video is just an ASMR experience for you. I hope it's relaxing and you can enjoy some of the sounds that I will be including later in the video. And so now we have some more shreds. There we go. And so when I have a lot of potatoes shredded, what I will do is I will squeeze them out with a paper towel, like I mentioned, to help get rid of some of that extra water, although I won't get all of it out. And then after squeezing it out, I'll put it in the big white bowl that I have. And because I'm working with so many potatoes, I had to do this in batches, so I would shred a handful of potatoes, wring them out, put them in the bowl, and make them into latkes, and then I would start the process all over again. And so here is part of the first batch. There we go. It looks like a lot, but we've got a lot more to go. And this was definitely a messy undertaking, so I'm glad I did this ahead of time. I don't know how I did this all the same day last year when I had the Hanukkah party. Okay, and so I'm going to be adding an onion to the latkes. You don't have to add an onion. I'm not sure how common it is. I don't always add an onion. In fact, more often than not, I just use potatoes. But for a special occasion like the Hanukkah party, I like to add an onion. It does just add a little bit more flavor. Onions and potatoes go so good together. And so I'm gonna just shred these the same way that I shred the potato. So I'm putting my glove back on, and we're going to begin shredding. And so, for your listening pleasure, here is the sound of the shredding. can be a bit challenging to shred an onion. As you can see, I had to fold some of it over. Sometimes you're left with some scraps, but I just try my best. And so there are some of the scraps, and I'm going to do the other half of the onion. If you add an onion to your latkes, let me know in the comments. I think it adds something nice. And I don't really have a ratio for how much onion to potato. In this case, I used the whole onion, and I probably used about 10 potatoes. So there's a pretty big difference between the potato to onion ratio. You just want a little bit of onion to add a little extra flavor. And I am very sensitive to when you cut onions and your eyes start to water. I'm very sensitive to whatever the onions emit when you cut them, so I did have to take a few breaks here and there because my eyes were watering quite a bit. It really, when you're cutting an onion, there might be some ways to avoid that, but when you're shredding an onion, I'm not sure if you can avoid the whatever gets emitted. You can see here I pause for a moment. But again, it's a labor of love, and onions taste so delicious that I can put up with burning eyes for a little bit. But here we go. Here's a close-up, and here's some more sounds of the grating for your ASMR experience. And so here are the shredded onions. I think they look nice. And now I'm going to shred another potato, and again, this time I won't talk as much so that you can just hear the sound of the grating to add to the ASMR experience. And so here's some more. So here we have another pile of shredded potatoes. Look at that semi-golden goodness, and into the colander they go. grabbed another potato, and the process just continues on. Let's listen to And here we go again, more shredding. And I think after this potato, I finally have enough of them to start making the first batch of latkes in the pan. And so what I'm doing right now, again, is just taking a paper towel and wringing out any extra liquid. You can see the paper towel getting wet as I squeeze. Again, surprisingly, potatoes do have a lot of water. And so now that I have a bowl full of potato shreds, I'm going to take some of my onion shreds and add them in. And I'm not using the whole amount of onion because this isn't the whole amount of potatoes. This is just the first batch. And so then I'm going to add some seasoning. I'm going to add salt. I'm just using pink Himalayan because the container it comes in is easier for sprinkling, but you can use table salt or kosher salt. I'm going to add some black pepper as well. And then some people will add matzah meal or flour or maybe baking powder, I believe. But I'm just going to add some breadcrumbs. This is typically what I add to the latkes. And then, of course, we're going to be adding a couple eggs. And you use the eggs to help kind of keep it all together so that the latke has a way to stay in shape and stick to itself. And so I found with this big bowl of potatoes, 2 eggs seem to be the right amount. The latkes were able to stick together just fine and cook just fine with 2 eggs. And this is a very messy procedure. I'm just getting my hands right in there to mix everything around. I actually prefer to wear gloves when doing this so that I don't have to wash my hands as many times. I can just change gloves. My hands do get a bit raw during the winter, but I had just run out of gloves, so I just had to do this with my hands, no gloves, but that's okay. And it's kind of fun to mix it all around. And then once you have everything mixed, you're gonna have to have a pan with some oil. For Hanukkah, it should be olive oil, but I think you can use any oil, so I won't tell if you use a different oil. And you'll basically form them into flat patties and fry them in the pan. So I have 2 pans going here, and as you can see, they both have a baby carrot in them. I recently learned from that same channel, My Jewish Mommy Life, that adding a baby carrot will help with splatter and it really does seem to work. So again, you should check out her video. I will try to link it below so that you can go watch that. It definitely was helpful. And the reason I'm using 2 pans is because I'm making so many latkes. I was able to make 7 latkes at a time by using 2 pans. If I wasn't making a big batch for a party, I would just be using 1 pan. And so yeah, you can see that I have these kind of like flat patties that I'm forming, and I'm just putting them into the pan and then pressing them down a little bit so that they're somewhat flat. And you can see maybe now why they're referred to as potato pancakes. They take on a pancake shape. And in the big pan on the right, I was able to fit 4. On this other pan right here on the left, it's a little smaller, so I was able to fit 3. And there can still be a little bit of splatter, but again, those baby carrots do help a bit. You might have to change out the baby carrot as you go. I changed the baby carrot every time I started a new batch of latkes. And I don't have a specified time for how long you're supposed to cook them on each side. I usually cook them on medium-high heat, and once they start to become solid on one side, I flip them. I prefer to flip them once they're brown on one side, but sometimes I just flip them once they're solid and then just flip them a second time to make sure they're brown on both sides. So here's a nice close-up of them cooking, seeing the oil bubbling and doing its thing. I think it's really nice, and it's exciting knowing I'm making these delicious treats. I mentioned cooking on medium-high heat, but do keep in mind every oil has a smoke point, and at some point when you cook long enough for it, you will start to burn the oil, so you might have to lower the heat at certain times, and you might have to add more oil so that you're working with fresh oil that isn't burnt. But in general, I kept the heat on medium-high and just turned it down to low when I took the latkes out and got ready to put more latkes on, and then I would turn the heat back up. So as they're cooking, I'm just grating more potatoes, starting the process all over again so that by the time these are done cooking and I take them off, I have more latkes ready to be cooked. And so here's the other pan. I'm going to start flipping them. As you can see, that one probably could have gone longer on the first side, but that's okay. Once it's done cooking on the flip side, I'm just going to flip it back over a second time because right now they're not quite brown enough. One of them is looking a little bit brown, but I like them a little more brown than that. I like them so that they're crispy on the outside. Maybe like a couple strands are almost burnt, but not quite. And then the inside is soft potato. And so we'll flip these sides too. And yeah, as you can see again, the side I just flipped isn't quite brown enough, so I'll probably just go back around and flip it a second time. But it's still okay to flip them now, just because you want to make sure both sides are getting cooked. So those sides will get brown, and then I'll just flip them again. And so now you can tell that the bottoms are starting to brown, and so we can flip these back over and just cook the first side a little bit longer. If I'm able to flip this one around, I'm just trying to prevent splatter. And so yeah, you can see that looks perfect. You can see the edges are a little bit crispy, a little bit burnt just on the edge, but the center is not burnt. The center is still golden, and those are just perfect looking latkes. So once the first sides just cook a little bit longer, they'll be ready to go. I'll take them off the heat, and then I'll add more latkes on. And let's get a nice close-up. I think it's kind of nice to see it close up. And so here is the finished product. I think it looks really nice. They're one of my favorite things to make. I love potatoes and latkes. And there you go. I hope that you enjoyed this video. If you did, please like the video and please comment below to let me know what you think. Please subscribe to my channel. I put out videos almost every week. And as always, Toda Rabah, Laila Tov. Thank you very much and good night.